Well, hello everyone, and welcome. It's so good to see you. We are so excited to have you here today. My name is Norma Hollis, and I'm going to be your host today. While we're waiting for other people to join us, go to the chat room and tell us where you're from. Introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, and maybe a statement about why you decided to join us. We're really glad to have you. We have quite a program in store for you and a lot of information to share for you. You're going to need two tools to make this work the best for you. One tool you need is the authenticity grid. That's this document right here. What you might want to do right now is to go to speaker view. For those that are not familiar with Zoom, at the top of your screen, it says speaker view, and then there's 9 dots, or there's 9 dots as a gallery view. So if you go in speaker view, you can just see the speaker speaking a lot more effectively. So this is the authenticity grid. It's also represented behind me. I'll be teaching from the one behind me, but I really want you to have one in your hand. And if you did not download it from your thank you page, then you can download it from the link that Linda is putting in the chat room right now. So go into your chat room and you'll see the link for the authenticity grid. You need to have that. You also need to have a copy of the authenticity assessment. That was also a link that we shared with you when you got your thank you page. And if you did not download it, that link also is in the chat room. So you can go there and get the link for the assessment. Now you have another option. The assessment is online. So you can go to authenticityassessment.com, and Linda will put that link also. And you can follow along and answer the questions as we go forward. Do not answer the questions until we talk about them and give you some definition and some explanation. But you can either do it on the live one by doing the paper one, or you can do it online at authenticityassessment.com. The advantage of doing it online is that you don't have to end up calculating your own scores, and you will be able to have your scores done for you automatically. So those are your options, and I'll be repeating those again as we go a little further. Again, for those that just joined us, you will probably enjoy the event more if you are in speaker view rather than gallery view. And speaker view means that at the top of your screen, the right top of your screen, you click speaker view, and then the speaker who is presenting will be who you see. Otherwise, you'll be seeing a gallery of the people who are there. It's far more engaging when you can actually see the speaker and talk with them. You feel like they're talking right to you. That's what we want you to feel like. So I'm going to repeat again how to get to the assessment and the grid, but not yet. I want to get you started first. And again, my name is Norma Hollis, and I have you here to understand more about yourself. It's a journey that I have taken for a number of years, and have learned a number of things that I want to share with you. So let me just start by talking about where we are in the world right now. I mean, there's nothing surprising that we don't know, because we're all dealing with what my friend Les Brown calls Corona Land. I love that title because that kind of explains in a nutshell what we're dealing with. But along with Corona Land are so many other things, you know, the racial injustice, all the challenges, the deaths, wherever you look, there's something going on. And it looks like it's a challenge that comes back every single day. But the question is, how do you deal with the challenge? How do you get yourself through the challenges that are going on in the world today? How do you fortify yourself to make yourself iron tight so that no matter what happens, and we have no idea what the next months, weeks, days are going to bring. I mean, who knew in January when you were making your New Year's resolutions that it would be a whole new world at this point in time? And even January feels like it was years ago, and it's only a few months ago. But one thing's for sure, we're out of the routine. So many of us live our lives in routine, kind of on autopilot. We get on autopilot very early in life. You know, we're born with these gifts and talents, and we express them so freely as children. When we're young and we're in our parents' home and we just laugh and sing and talk, whatever it is that we feel is a part of us, we do it freely. And it doesn't take long before we do it so loud and enthusiastically that our parents tell us to not talk so loud or not be so loud. And then that takes us away from our authentic self, from our superpower. And then we get into school, and rather than go to the bathroom when you need to, you have to go when it's a break. So you have to learn to structure yourself. You have to learn to sit in your seat. it causes you to sometimes get into cubicles that you stay in sometimes for the most of your life. I think the people having the biggest challenge with what's going on right now are those who've been in those cubicles. And I want to talk to those people who are not in the cubicle, or at least ready to get out of the cubicle. Because we live on autopilot in these cubicles for so long, doing the same thing, sometimes not even realizing why we're doing it, and sometimes we're doing it with very unhappy feelings. But yet instead, we're in that trap, we're in that path, we're on that autopilot process, and it takes something like Corona Land to help us stop and look at ourselves and make a difference. I want to help you look at yourself and make a difference. I had to do that when I was 28 years old. That's when this journey started for me. At 28, I realized I had done everything my parents had said to do. I had the husband, he had a good job, I had a good job, we both had good cars, we had a beautiful house, we had money in the bank, we had all those things that they say will make you happy. And I was absolutely miserable. But I didn't know what to do about my misery because I didn't know who I was. So I didn't know what path to go on. I realized I had become the vision of who my parents thought I heard a Black child should be, a Black woman should be in the world, but it didn't fit who I am. So that's when I went on my journey to understand myself. And 30 years later, I realized that I had created something in looking at myself that actually represents most people in the world. I had a speaker bureau at the time. I was the first Black woman to have a speaker bureau for Black speakers. And by this time, I had a nice following. The internet was just new in the world, and I had a nice following. And so I traveled around the country sharing what I'm sharing with you today, but from a different level, because I was just beginning then. And there are people here with me today that were with me in that very beginning stage, and that's been 20 years or so ago. And it's very exciting to have them grow on this path. But what I learned when I dissected myself is that there were three voices within me. And later I learned that everybody has these three voices. These voices are your inner voice. That's the voice that no one hears but you. Talks to you all the time. Sometimes you recognize it, sometimes you don't. Then there is the outer voice. And the outer voice is the voice that other people speak. It's kind of the voice that society talks about a lot, about your health and your relationships and the money that you have. We'll talk more about that as we move forward. And then we all have an expressive voice, which is who we have become in the world and the habits that we have and how we fulfill our life and what we do on a day-to-day basis. And all of these energies collectively make up who we are. Do you realize there's nowhere in society where people teach you who you are? You go to school and you learn how to get a job, pretty much. You go to church and you learn the denominations and the religious perspectives of the church that you're attending. But where do you go to learn who you are? If you go to TV, all you're going to do is see a bunch of shoot 'em ups. That's what our kids do. They live by that in some cases. I remember when I first came out of college with a degree in early childhood, and they had finished one of the first studies to talk about the effect of TV violence on children and on growth. And they found there was a clear correlation that the more violence seen, the more violence occurred. And in my naive self, I'm saying, yay, that's great. Now they're going to change TV. It's going to be healthier. It's going to be nicer. And they did change it, but in the other direction. And the videos now, and I even saw in some of those messengers that come around on Facebook where they had this cartoon this lady was showing, where it was a police officer actually shooting down a young child in a cartoon. It's crazy. So we're at a place in life right now where we can change that. We may not be able to change the whole society, but we can change ourselves and we can change the people around us. And that begins to make a change that makes a change that makes a change. Because in some way, it's got to get a little better. So the authenticity assessment is what you're going to do, and it's based on the authenticity grid. I'm going to take you through each one of these dimensions as you listen to speakers who are going to tell you their story. So if you just joined us, let me remind you, you need to have your authenticity grid with you. And the grid, there's a link to get the grid. If you don't have it, go to the chat box and you'll see the link for the grid. You also need to have the authenticity assessment because you're going to take an assessment to get to know more about yourself. If you also have the option with the assessment of taking it online by going to authenticityassessment.com. All of those are in the chat box for you to take. But let's start you on your journey. You're going to take a journey into each one of these dimensions, starting with intuition. You are intuitive. You have an intuitive self. It's referred to as your sixth sense. So you're going to hear from our first speaker, and when she finishes, I'm going to give you your assessment and your question on intuition. Let me introduce you to Tracy Carruthers. Tracy has been in my presence, in each other's presence, for 30 years and counting. I think we started stop counting at 30 years, but she was a very significant part for about a decade in helping me develop this authenticity program. Now, she's not going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you that Tracy is a former NBC News Bureau Chief, and I'm very proud of her, always have been. So please welcome Tracy Carruthers. Tracy.
Wow, Norma, thank you so much. I am really stoked to be sharing my thoughts on intuition with you today, because I believe that intuition is the superpower of authenticity. First and foremost, intuition is a feeling. Some say it's a gut feeling. It is a sense. It's a sense that helps you know right from wrong. Sometimes it comes to you as an afterthought. You might say, something told me. Or maybe it even comes to you in the moment like, it occurred to me. What's actually happening is there's a voice that speaks to you from inside. And if you listen deeply, it'll tell you what to do and what to say. It answers all the small questions like what to eat or what to wear. It even answers some of the big ones like, why am I here? The first time you actually acknowledge and follow that voice, that's when you begin to take the first step to becoming your authentic self. Now, that's what I call a superpower. I think I've been listening for that voice all my life. As an only child, I spent a lot of time asking myself a lot of questions. Chief among them was, why did I have to be so tall? I have always been taller than everyone in my school, everyone in my family, everyone in my life. The kids at school soon figured out that I was ashamed of my height, so they called me names. Hey, Treetop was the one they used most. To make matters worse, my real name was odd. There weren't a lot of girls named Tracy in those days, and so they called me Dick Tracy after the comic book detective of that time. And for some reason, even my family called me other names. My father called me Kiddo. My mother called me Butch. My uncle called me Niece Butch. It was as if the real me didn't exist. And whoever I was too tall to fit in anywhere. I was lost. And all the questions of why and why me went unanswered until I was probably around 6 or 7. And early one morning, I was awakened from a deep sleep by a voice that called me by my name. I woke up looking for the voice, and it occurred to me, I think that might have been my first intuitive thought. It occurred to me that the voice had come from inside. It was a deep, deep understanding that inside me there was something that was me, a part of me that knew more than me. And at that moment, I felt real and worthy and loved. I embraced that voice And it rewarded me with power and authority and a deep wisdom that helped me believe in myself. That belief has anchored me over the years in a wisdom of values of service and purpose. As a journalist, this idea of deeply listening deeply, allowed me to discern truth as it reveals itself in interviews and conversations. As an executive coach, I teach leaders how to listen to their own wisdom so they can make decisions with clarity and purpose. Along the way, something really powerful happened to me. I developed a deep, abiding faith in this gift of intuition. It has stood by me through all the years. And whenever I'm struggling with an answer or trying to come up with a decision, that's my clue to let go of my fears, and it frees me to be guided by intuition. It has never, ever failed me because my faith in intuition is my superpower. I see that same kind of fearless faith in the faces of the people you see protesting and marching. They seem driven with no fear of police brutality. Even the tear gas and the so-called non-lethal bullets of the federal agents don't stop them. Still, they come by the thousands, Black and white, young and old, mothers with bicycle helmets and fathers with leaf blowers, and now even veterans come to protect them all. I think they are driven by this voice that calls them, this voice that girds them with courage and determination and hope. So what about you? There is something inside of you that speaks to you. It is a part of you, but it knows more than you. Can you hear it? How does the voice of intuition speak to you? Thanks, Norma.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate your calm share of your wisdom. Your wisdom has always been very valuable to me and to everyone that in my program that has met you and been a part of you. So I thank you very much. This is Tracy and I have been doing this for many years, and this is actually the first time that she's spoken about the grid, although she's spoken in other events that I've done on other topics. So if you have any questions for Tracy, you can put them in the chat box. We're taking chat questions after each speaker just for a short time, and we'll take a lot of questions at the end of the entire program. The entire program is geared to help you understand you, and the speakers are sharing stories that help you understand. So hopefully through Tracy's story, you had a bit to reflect on and think about in terms of your own childhood, in terms of what impacted you, in terms of how you listen to your inner voice. What I find is that this whole inner voice area is one that people have a lot of challenge with because they don't always trust it. They don't always know what it's saying or when it's listening to you. Do you find that also, Tracy, in your coaching practice?
Yeah, I have another coach actually, and his entire practice is based on intuition. And he teaches leaders all over the world to stop trying to make a decision, to stop trying to sit in rooms all night long and trying to figure something out. He says, just listen to your intuition. So he teaches them how to listen to their intuition. And it's amazing to him. It takes them sometimes a year to get them to rely on something. Because just like we get into patterns when we're children, Leaders get into patterns. You know, they've always done it. They've always worked and worked and worked. They stay another hour. They stay another 2 days. They figure it out. They table it and they come back to it and they can't figure out what to do. And normally in all that kind of a stress, they make decisions that don't necessarily give them the results they want. But when they learn how to trust their intuition, he says it's like magic. And there are companies all over this world, believe it or not, whose leaders use nothing more than intuition. Bill Gates has a saying. He says sometimes intuition is the only thing you have to rely on. Oprah Winfrey leads by intuition. Most of your great and successful leaders and people. And when I am most successful is when I can trust my own intuition. And when I see the people that I coach a lot of young Black women entrepreneurs. And when and sometimes all they have, literally, because they are the CEO, the CCO, the cook and bottle washer, you know, the accountant, the whole thing. But when they learn that there's a power inside of them that can help them, and they don't need all the rest of that team if they can't afford them, they are their fear is gone. So they make great decisions. Literally, it frees you up to make the best decisions.
Yeah. And it frees you up to find your superpower. Because this is where it all starts, in your inner voice. So thank you, Tracy. Your presentation has been very valuable. For those of you that just joined us, let me just say that you need 2 documents. You need this authenticity grid. If you didn't download it from your thank you page, then look in the chat box and you'll see a link for it. And you also need the authenticity assessment. And that's what we're going to do right now. There's a link for the assessment in the chat box, or you can go to authenticityassessment.com and there's a link there to take the assessment online. Now, I would like you to look at number 1 question on the authenticity assessment, and that's about intuition. And the definition is the degree to which you listen to and follow your inner voice. Are you listening and responding to the quiet voice within you? So you're looking at this to the degree that you integrated this concept in your life. By integrated, what I mean is if you remember when you started to learn how to drive a car, when you first got in the car, you had to really think about, I have to sit this way, I have to hold the wheel this way, I have to know where I'm going. All these thoughts you have to be very deliberate about. And now it's like, how did I get home so fast? It's become a habit with you. So that's integration. So the question is, to the degree to which you have integrated intuition into your life, are you listening and responding to the quiet voice within you? If you feel, I did not know I had a voice within, score yourself 1 to 3. If your answer is, I found it and I'm beginning to access it, score yourself 4 to 7. And if your answer is, I allow my inner voice to lead and direct me, score yourself 8 to 10. So give yourself a score now. And we'll go to the next dimension of the authenticity grid in the inner voice, and that's integrity. And integrity has to do with your values. Do you know what your values are? You know, when I got out into the world, and when you're 20s and get out in the world, you learn that the values that you learned in your parents' home are not the values of everybody that you meet in the world. And that continues to expand and expand as you expand your life. And it also expands over generations. And our next speaker is going to talk about integrity from a historical perspective, particularly looking at Black America. Her name is Cherie Peaches Carr, and we refer to her as Peaches. Peaches, you're up.
Thank you, Norma. I am a conqueror. All my friends, everybody know I say it all the time. I'm a conqueror, and I am a conqueror, but I found out why I'm a conqueror. I am proud to be Black. I am proud to be Black. I am proud of my integrity and the values that were still in me that I also instilled in my 2 children. Growing up as a child, my mother was somewhat of a history buff. We would go to school and come home and tell her what we learned in history. And my mother said, that's not the real history. That's not the true history. She taught us the true history, what actually happened, what I now call truthful history through integrity. Eli Whitney was a Black man who invented the cotton gin. The cotton gin is a machine that takes the seeds out of the cotton, what they call clean cotton. This Black man invented the cotton gin, and a white man stole his name, his patent, the proceeds of the cotton gin. And if you look it up today, who is Eli Whitney, you'll see a picture of a Black man. I mean, of a white man. But if you dig deeper and ask, did a Black man invent the cotton gin? Then it will tell you, yes, a Black man invented the cotton gin. Just think about it. In 1794, what did a white man know about picking cotton? So it was stolen. Then in 1866, there is a man, an enslaved man by the name of Nathan Green, also known as Neverus. Neverus had a recipe for whiskey in Tennessee. It was stolen. His recipe was stolen by a white man. Neverus was bought from, Neverus was bought from his enslaver to another enslaver, and the recipe was used, and you all are familiar with Jack Daniels. Actually, that was a Black man's recipe. It's true that Thomas Edison created the light bulb. He created the light bulb, but he used paper as the light. And everybody knows that paper burns down. The invention came from a Black man who invented carbon filament. Now, carbon filament is what keeps the light glowing. What keeps the light going for on and on, you know. We still use these inventions today. The cotton gin is still used in the textile industry. People still drink Jack Daniels whiskey, and light bulbs are everywhere. Businesses, homes, schools, everywhere. So when you hear people saying, slavery was 400 years ago, get over it. Think, well, how will our lives be without these inventions that were invented in slavery 400 years ago that we still use today? How do you get over something like that? 1619 was when the first slaves was brought over here from Africa. They were actually carpenters, masons, builders, from every kind of industry you can imagine. They were brought over here to become slaves and perform free labor, of which they did. They built this country. They built this country. They built roads and bridges. They built towns. They built cities. They built the White House, and they built the Capitol State Building, our state building. The intricate details that are carved in was done by an enslaved person. The Indian that stands on the top of the Capitol building that represents freedom was cast by a non-free person. I am a conqueror. In spite of the difficulties that was thrown on these people, greatness emerged. Not only did these slaves or enslaved people, not only did they build the United States, but they created something of their own. They created a culture, an African American culture, something that was not obtained from Africa, and it wasn't obtained from white America. It was their own. Integrity, they created it. They created song, music, dance, food, their style of religion, and the hopes of liberty and freedom. They built something out of nothing. Integrity. Something that wasn't stole from somebody else, something that wasn't borrowed from somebody else. They created their own. Integrity and value. I am proud to be Black. I am a conqueror. Society tells us that children from a single parent household, usually the biological mother, is doomed. Basically, that a girl from a single parent household is 2.5 times likely to become a teenage pregnancy, a teenage mother, than that of a two-parent household. 1.4 times a two-parent family to become truant in school, low test scores, low grade point averages, and probably end up incarcerated. Well, I was a single parent. My husband and I divorced when our children was 5 and 8. I am not a grandmother today, and they are 30 and 33. They both have their master's degrees. My son has his master's degree and is also in school right now to get his second master's degree. He works in marketing with Verizon. My daughter, she also has her master's degree. She works in production of reality shows. She recently finished as a producer on a little small, what they call short, which is like a little short movie, called While Black, that has been nominated for a Critics' Choice Award. I also have my master's degree. How did I get it? Was through values and integrity. Where did that come from? My ancestors. My ancestors, who were conquerors. They made possible out of impossible. They took nothing and made something. Yes, I am proud to be Black. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors with integrity. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors with value, creativity, motivation. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors as conquerors. Why am I a conqueror? Because my ancestors were. Now, I feel that I'm a conqueror. I feel that you can be a conqueror, or you are a conqueror. Tell me, what have you done lately to be a conqueror? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peaches. Great presentation, and you are a conqueror. You are, I hear an echo. You are a conqueror, and you definitely showed that in your presentation, and you gave us all reasons to be very proud as African Americans. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. You know, integrity is such an important part of life. We don't always think about it because oftentimes, if you think about the people who are around you, a lot of people will tell you that your net wealth and your net worth is same as people that are around you. And what we say is that your values are like people who are around you. So it's important if you're looking at questions about what do you value, what's important to you, look at the people who are in your circle you spend most of your time with. Peaches, I'm glad to have spent time with you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And for all of you, if you're new to the call and you don't have your authenticity grid, look in the chat box for the link to download the grid, which we're talking about. And you also need the assessment, authenticity assessment. We're now on question number 2, integrity. The definition is obtaining and following a belief system, your values. The question you're going to answer is, what does your value system communicate to those who are watching and listening? Score yourself 1 to 3 if your answer is, I am not aware of my values. 4 to 7, I'm aware of my values and recognize where I need to strengthen them. And 8 to 10, my values are fully integrated in my life. Give yourself a score, please. And now we're going to the third dimension of the inner voice, and that's inspiration. And it's kind of 2 questions. What inspires you, and how do you inspire others? Where our next speaker, I'm sure, is going to inspire you. I met her 2 years ago when I was in China, and I was a facilitator for an organization called the World Academy for the Future of Women. And she was one of the students at the school where I was teaching. And we became fast friends. It's just amazing because she's now just 23 years old, and I'm a lot older than that. But we have become great, great friends. She actually left China last year to come to the United States to work on her master's program. And her name is Del Song. So her English is very good, but listen carefully. She has a very important message for you, and I'm really so proud of her. Del, it's on you.
Thank you, Norma. As a 19 years old sophomore college student, I don't have my self-awareness, and I ask my parents or my teacher who I am, why am I here, what's my purpose, and but they told me you just study hard, and you go to a good university, you get a good job, you get married, you have 2 kids, and I know that's not my choice, and but I have no choice, so I do what my parents and the school told me to do. But at that time, I always have a headache, but the doctor said everything of my body is healthy. They don't know why I have headache. But I know I have something else to do in my life. What my parents and the school told me to do is they want my parents and the school want to use the society think I successful motivate me, but I know it's not the thing can inspire me. Until when I was sophomore, I joined the World Academy for the Future of Women, and at there the purpose is I discover of my passion, my purpose, and my path to success, and learned how to live a meaningful life. So at the first year at World Academy, I learned how to express myself, which is the outer voice can inspire me. Like I dye my hair from blonde to purple, from purple to pink. I go shopping, I try different style, and I explore new place. And until Norma came World Academy as facilitator. At the first class, we take a test. We use a timeline, examine my life, and which helped me understand myself in deeper ways. Also, Norma hold a workshop to find my top value, my gift, and my talent, and how do I use it in this world to become an authentic self. And then there is a chance I can go to San Diego as exchange student. And Norma said, why don't you take a train from San Diego to LA? So I take a train from San Diego to LA and to visit Norma. And Norma take me to 3 churches in one day. That's for the first time in my life. I went to church. The first is Faithful Central Bible Church. The second one is Catholic Church. The last one is Up Church. It's held by 2 women. And for my first time in my life, I went to church, and the message I got is, God done things to you in your life, but He done it for somebody else. And I already have what I need to get started. and God will give me what I need to succeed, which is totally answered my question for 20 years. Who I am, why I came here, what's my purpose. And so then it's time for my graduate. I know the things my parents told me is not inspire me, so I decide graduate school at beautiful Hayes, Kansas. And when I first arrived Hayes, most people said, why Hayes? It's middle of nowhere. But I find we have beautiful sunset, we have beautiful sunrise, we even have storm, and but after the storm, it's rainbow. You can see the beautiful rainbow. And like until this year, around March, the virus came and our school closed. Then I found myself another inspiration, which is doing gardening. And like I plant in my garden, I plant some eggplant, tomato, cucumber, carrot, zucchini, jalapeno, because I like spicy. And like I planted the seed. I saw my plant grow up. The first thing I wake in the morning. The first things I do is I get up. I want to work on my garden, like go to the garden, see what's my plant doing. I think like I already became friend with them, and they are my best friend. And so like now is my time to harvest, but I don't want to eat them because they are my friend, and people don't usually eat their friend. And but after I tried a meal from my garden with zucchini and eggplant and jalapeno, I like them. And my best plant, my plant know that I like them, so they produce more. And also like in our backyard, there is a tree, and I found a nest on the tree. And when I come closer, I saw 2 baby birds with their mom. And after I go there, check them 2 weeks later, I found the nest is empty. And because the 2 birds learned how to fly in 2 weeks, and they fly away. And like even I take care of my plant, but it's God's love let my plant grow, and God take care of the bird. God also take care of me. And when last week I FaceTime with my parents, they asked me, how's your headache? Because I always have headache when I was in China. I said, no, I haven't have any headache in 1 year. And now it's beautiful hot summer day, and I enjoy the harvest from my garden. I can't wait to see what's next, and the seed plant in my heart. I also want you to take some time, think about what inspires you. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you, Dale. Good job. I appreciate your lovely spirit and your light humor. You know, you said something very profound, very wise for someone your age. You said that you gave it love and it grew. And that's so true. And I've seen you grow so much in the last year, and I'm proud of you. And for all of you, this is Dell's song, and watch her. She's going to be a world leader moving forward. So she's doing some wonderful things. And and I love the way you're very inspiring by your courage to leave China and come here and live in Kansas, which is a little different from anything you've been doing before, but then make the best of it. So wishing you the very best, and thank you so much for being one of our speakers today.
Thank you.
So we're talking about inspiration now. And what inspires you? As Dale asked, what is it that inspires you, and how do you inspire other people? It's so important to be inspiring and to inspire others. So if someone gave you a applaud, they're clapping for you, Dale. You see a applaud in the corner there. So congratulations. So now you have an opportunity to take the assessment. If you do not have your grid, if you're brand new with us, just coming in, you want to get your grid, go to the chat room and get instructions. And also for the assessment, you need to take the assessment as well. And you can look at your number 3 question, inspiration. defined as your personal, internal, and external drive. And the question you're going to answer is, what drives you? The inner voice of inspiration or the outer voice of motivation? Let me just take a moment here just for a second and talk about inspiration versus motivation. Because when I had my speakers bureau, so many speakers came to me, wanted to be the best motivational speaker. The motivation comes from the outside in. Inspiration comes from the inside out. And from an authenticity perspective, you want to come from the inside out. Sometimes you need the outside to get you going, but no change, no transformation, no movement really happens unless you come from the inside out. And that's why the question reads, what drives you? The inner voice of inspiration or the outer voice of motivation? Score yourself 1 to 3 if your answer is, I need other people to get me motivated. Score yourself 4 to 7 if your answer is, I am equally motivated and inspired. And score yourself 8 to 10 if your answer is, I inspire myself and accomplish my goals. Let me just tell you for a minute before we go to the outer voice, just how the inner voice works. So an idea comes to you through your intuitive nature, through your sixth sense, and you hear it, you feel it, you sense it. You filter it quickly through your integrity. Does it meet my values? Does it not meet my values? And then if you're so inspired, then you act on it. It happens so fast in our lives all the time, every day. Like, for example, well, when we could go to work, maybe you're driving home and you're had a busy day and you want to get home and someone jumps in front of you real fast. And then your intuitive nature first says, I would like to ram that car. But your value system says, no, there's too many risks in that. It's too expensive. You can't do that. So you're not inspired to do it. So you put the brakes on. And that goes on in our life all the time as we make decisions. The more you know yourself, the more you're connected with your sixth sense and with your authenticity, the better you can make those decisions. Because especially if you know your values, your decisions are based on your values. You can't make them well if you don't know what your values are. So we're going to go now to the outer voice. Authenticity, your superpower, begins in your inner voice. It's strengthened when your outer voice gives the same message as your inner voice. The 3 dimensions, the first one we're going to talk about is net wellness, which is talking about holistic wellness and balance. We're very much into Western medicine here, which is more chemicals and things of that nature, versus the more holistic perspective, which looks at the totality, including the Eastern perspective. And it also includes spiritual healing and being a spiritual healer, because many of us are and don't use those talents. Our next speaker is going to tell you about how she has used her mind to control her mind. And that's something that we all have to do from time to time. She is one of my speaking clients and is a popular Toastmaster. And I'm excited to bring to you now Miss Kim Torek. Kim, you can have the floor.
Thank you, Norma. When I was little, I was fascinated by an episode of The Twilight Zone. In it, the lead character actually put his arm in the pathway of a spinning propeller of a jet plane. But in that instant, when he did that, the plane disappeared and the propeller disappeared. Why would he do such a thing, putting his arm in harm's way that way? And the reason he did, that even though he could see the plane, even though his senses told him he could hear the whining of the engine and the drone of the propellers and touch them, that they may not be real. And so when he tested it, the plane and the propeller disappeared. And such is the magic of the Twilight Zone. This man, his, what do they call it? Superpower. His superpower was the dispeller of illusion. And that's my superpower. It can be your superpower too. Let's fast forward to present day. I'll tell you about my present day jet plane and propeller situation that happened recently. I decided to do a Facebook Live. It was a little bit out of my comfort zone. Let's say it was a lot out of my comfort zone. I didn't get gussied up. I didn't prepare. I just jumped on and I did it. Afterwards, when I reviewed it, I started to hear this inner voice criticizing me strongly. I call that voice the Gestapo gabber. Gabber because it gabs incessantly, and Gestapo because it's just like those Gestapos that I saw the movies about way back when I was a kid watching World War II movies. The Gestapo were heinous and vicious, and they sucked the life out of people. And that's just what I felt that the Gestapo gapper does for me. It just sucks the joy. When I did my Facebook Live and I heard the loud voice trying to get me to stop being big, you stop trying to improve myself and go beyond what I know already. The voice criticized my appearance heavily. Your lipstick's wrong. Your hair's wrong. Saying it in a very harsh manner. You're fat. You're old. I literally did nothing right. The Gestapo gabber. It's been around a long time. Everyone has one. Mine often centers around my appearance, which makes sense because Gestapo gabber, that little voice that gets in our way of moving forward, it revolves around unhealed childhood issues as far as I can see. And my childhood issue very strongly involved the day I was born and every day after that. My mother had a very hard time with my appearance because I was born with a facial difference. Some people can't tell the difference, but my mother sure could. If you look closely, my nose is misshapen. My lips were, when I was born, they were separated and they needed to be surgically, adjoined. Same with the roof of my mouth. So from day one, I got a heavy load of my mother's feelings, of her shame and her despair about my not being okay. So we all have our version and, about why something in our childhood that wasn't right. When I'm sharing this to you, the reason I'm sharing this to you is that my topic is net wellness. My topic is about holistic wellness and balance. And because of this disturbance in my thinking that really cultivated a self-loathing that I spent the rest of my life working on really hard, doing everything it seemed from A to Z, the therapy and spiritual healing, and I became a spiritual healer, and it's all good, very, very good. But the main thing was that I let that Gestapo gabber run amok. When I reviewed the Facebook Live, I didn't put my arm inside the propeller that when it said, "You don't look right," I believed it. When it said, "You're old, you shouldn't do this kind of stuff, leave it for the young people," I didn't put my arm in the propeller. What I'm saying is, I've learned that by challenging that Gestapo gabber, that you can fortify yourself. And there's a system that I have used that I can guarantee you will stop the effects of the Gestapo. And here it is. The acronym is STOP, S-T-O-P. S is for surrender. So surrender to the other side. What I mean by that is leave a space for believing something different that if you see a jet plane and a propeller and you can see it and you can hear it and it's almost palpable that you could feel it, challenge it. Because T is truth, align with the truth. And the truth is that I and you all and everyone, we are perfect in our essence. We're stainless and unsullied. And that is not changeable. That does not change, even if my lipstick wasn't on right. So S for surrender to the other side. And the truth is the other side. T, truth. O, observe. Observe what the Gestapo gabber tells you. B, the plan. The plan is write down everything the Gestapo gabber says, and at the end of the day, write the opposite. The opposite, that I have value, that I matter, that my essence and all of our essences are beautiful. And that is the truth. So that challenging the Gestapo gabber and putting your arm into the propeller, dispelling the illusion of unworthiness, that we fortify the real truth about ourselves. We step into our net wellness, our holistic wellness and balance, and we exercise our superpower, dispelling illusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I always enjoy hearing your story. And, you know, you talked about going into the propeller. And, you know, some of us go into propellers all the time and don't realize we're doing that. And yes, and I appreciate your healing skills. I've seen them, I know they're at work right now, and I know that's just about who you are. And I'm very proud of you and happy to have you. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And that wellness has a lot to do, as Kim talked about, with the totality of the wellness, not just your physical, not just your mental, not just your spiritual, but how it all connects together. And it's so important. And Kim, you give me a lot of courage and a lot of motivation by the successes that you've gone through and dealing with, you know, we all have personal issues about our looks and what have you that bring us down. And just the idea of taking things and changing the negative to a positive makes a big, big difference. Thank you. Thank you. So for those of you, I wanted to make sure you have your grid. And we're going to now the question number 4 on your questionnaire for the authenticity assessment. And this is about net wellness. And it's about holistic wellness and balance. And we talked about the totality of wellness. It even includes things like the kind of water you drink and whether you use more chemicals or more natural products. And in today's environment of Corona land, you really have to be very cognizant of what you're putting in your body, because immunity is a very important thing. And immunity, a part of immunity also is your attitude and your health and your perspective of yourself and loving yourself. So the question is, how your thoughts on aspects of wellness show up in your life. Score yourself 1 to 3. What does holistic mean? 4 to 7. I understand my wellness needs and I'm making positive changes. And 8 to 10. Holistic health principles are integrated in my life. You are welcome to make any comments or questions in the chat box, and we will answer those. We'll do those at the very end because we're moving along and letting the speakers continue. But we'll answer your questions that you might have. And let's see. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to tell you is to make sure that you're in speaker mode. If you go to the top right of your screen for your Zoom, you'll see it says gallery view and it says speaker mode. If you use speaker mode, the speaker will come alive for you by themselves rather than the gallery of everyone who's on the call, and you'll enjoy it a lot more. So our next dimension is right in the middle of the grid, and that's network. And we look at network in 3 different ways. The network around you, your quality and quantity relationships. Quality, because you want people around you who really are honest with you, are authentic with you, will help you be true to yourself. And then you want quantity because sometimes you just need to find a shoemaker, or you go out of town and you need to connect with someone to make things happen. So you need both in your life. network is also the net of the work you've done in your life. And it's also networking and moving that around. And so our next speaker is going to talk about network from a very interesting perspective. Let me introduce Ida Marie Briggs. Marie, you're on. Marie, are you unmuted?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So I'm very excited. I have an opportunity to share with you some of the things that I've learned about my network, the quality and the quantity relationships. So I've been told by many of my family members on many occasions that when I was born, I came into this world already knowing what to do and knowing just how to do it. They also told me that because I was the oldest of my father and mother, my aunts, uncles, and older cousins would just hold me and pass me from one person to the other because they just enjoy how I responded to their communication with them. I was loved, easily accepted, adapted well into a family network, and as I got older, looked forward to all the family gatherings or the foundation on which I would build my quantity and quality relationships. Growing up in a large, close-knit family, it automatically gave me the quantity relationship. It was up to me to figure out how to classify the quality. So it's natural in a family to gravitate or align with some family members more than others, but it becomes easy for me when there was an exchange of energy or passion. That was the clue that led me to identify the quality relationships, like with my cousin Henry. For years at our family gatherings, he would stay to himself, but always with a comic book. Every week, he was a collector, and he wouldn't allow the younger ones to touch him. Being a teen at the time, he would never tell us why he was so into these comic books, but finally, after me asking and asking, he began to tell us. Well, not only did he tell us, he began to act it out. His favorite character was Spider-Man. He began jumping from place to place, pretending to fly through the air like he was actually the character. His face was lit up and he was so excited as he went on and on about the new episodes and what was happening. I was so engaged, I thought I was at the movie theater. I was laughing. He had us laughing in tears. And the more interest I showed, the more he went on. It was years later that he confided in me how that made him feel. He was going through some things and comic books were his escape. And he thanked me for allowing him to just be himself. It was experiences like these that helped me to develop and identify the quality relationships that I would soon encounter. And it helped me to hone into my superpowers of moral support and showing genuine interest in others' beliefs or dreams. I have found that when I'm truly engaged and fully invested in someone else and their dream, it helps me to get closer to mine. So we're in January 2020. A friend of mine, now a business partner, has a dream to support the passengers on the ships that are quarantined due to the coronavirus. So as I listened to her go on and on, I decided I wanted to help her, support her, because guess what? When I wanted to do my play, she was there for me at the very beginning. She encouraged me, she helped me, she supported me. Even when it got tough and I wanted to give up, she was like, we need this, we need you. So it's only fair that I turn around and do the same for her. So we started formulating a plan of action. we were trying to figure out the list of the hows and how we can support other people, and how to execute our plan. Uh-oh. So the time is passing on. It is now coming up to March. And of course, coronavirus is still passing along too. I've been sent home from my job because the county, or should I say the country, has been placed on a stay-at-home order. That weekend, the grocery stores have been emptied out. No food on the shelf, no toilet paper, no essential anythings were to be found. And all I remember was the images of the poor and homeless population that did not have the resources to go stock up on their essential needs in their household. In fact, some didn't even have a place to stay. So both of us being very community minded, that's where our heart is, we immediately activated her plan, her operation. We call it putting love to work. We started using what we had, the resources around us, and started making grocery bags and care packages for the people in need in the Long Beach area. Then we began to list support from our quality and quantity relationships. We began getting monetary donations, referrals to contacts willing to contribute to what they had for our cause. We got food, perishable items, non-perishable items, personal care items, and clothing to distribute to the families in need. And every time we showed up, there was a line of families in need. We have been offered 3 temporary locations in Long Beach, and Senator Gonzalez sent her staff members out to help us one time. We had so many people. To date, we have served 7,000 families since March. That was every day, almost every other Saturday, just sharing the resources that we were able to gather just by using our quality and quantity relationships. We supported Pepperdine University with their grandparent mentoring program, where we physically delivered grocery bags to seniors who had been shut in because of the coronavirus. So this was all good, but we were carting contributions from one house to the other house, filling up my truck, unloading it in one place, picking it up, and we needed our own location. We needed everything central. So we began to start asking for a building, and we went back to what we had, our quality and quantity relationship, and began inquiring if anybody had a building. We were ready for our own location so we could store everything in one place. A quantity relationship referred us to another quantity relationship, and we met with this young man. We shared our community-minded mission with him, which actually was what he wanted to do, but just needed some support as well. And one meeting later, we were blessed or fortunate to receive a building for our headquarters and a distribution site where we can permanently store the food that we get and distribute the food. So not one building did we get, we got 2. So I'm just so excited because right in the middle of COVID-19, a stay-at-home order where everything was looking dismal, we were able to make moves and navigate and help people to a magnitude that we couldn't even fathom just by using our quality and quantity relationships. I just wanted to share that in closing, that I want you to use to use your superpowers wisely. And remember that your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, and the way you make other people's feel is your trademark. It has taken me a long way to get to my dream just by supporting others. I want you to use yours to infinity and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Well done. I appreciate that and appreciate you. You were definitely an example of networking and how it really allows you to expand. And I congratulate you again. I didn't know it was 2 billion. I congratulate you again for your continued success. And you've always
Thank
impressed
you.
me about how your passion is really to helping other people. You'll be put that first. And I've seen it in action. So congratulations and thank you for your message.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So again, it's in the middle of the grid. Imagine if you were the only person on the planet and there was no one here but you. It wouldn't work too well because network is every dimension surrounds network. So people are involved in everything in your life and everything that you do. So it's time to answer the question, number 5 in your network, the quality and quantity of your relationship. What do your associations say about you? 1 to 3, I do not have many friends. 4 to 7, I realize that if I enhance my associations, I enhance my life. And 8 to 10, I have high quality associations that benefit my growth. Give yourself a score. And now we're going to the last dimension of the outer voice, which is net wealth. And when you hear net wealth, when all of us hear net wealth, we're really conditioned to look at net wealth as the sum total of your money. But there's so many other ways to look at net wealth. And our next speaker, Peggy Muhammad, is going to talk to you about that. Peggy and I have been connected with Authenticity for about 10 years, and I've watched her grow and grow and grow and grow. And she's growing even as we speak right now. So please, Peggy, it's your turn.
Hi, everybody. My superpower is in net wealth. So in our world of authenticity, net wealth is abundance or net wealth is blessings. But whatever you want to call it, don't forget to call it net wealth, and it is my superpower. Have you ever in your life felt alone, fearful, or insecure? If you have, that's called insecure, that's called scarcity. As a matter of fact, I've had scarcity during this pandemic. Scarcity is like a shroud to me. Whatever thoughts I had, it was as though I was clothed in a shroud and I couldn't think of anything other than not having. And I felt this way for a while until one day, I think it was the first day during quarantine that I went out to do errands. And as I was driving, I stopped at a stoplight, at a traffic light. I stopped and I said, well, this one is going to hold me for a long time, so I might as well turn on the radio. And guess what? As I turned on the radio, there was a celebrity that was talking about feeling alone and feeling insecure and feeling without. And he said, you feel that way because you don't have any gratitude. And I felt this little and ashamed, but I liked what he was saying. So when the light turned green, I continued to listen to the radio. By the time I finished my destination, he had finished his information on scarcity, on whatever I was feeling. He stopped and he made me really believe that had I some gratitude, that I wouldn't feel this way. And can you imagine coming to my destination? Can you guess what my destination was? My destination was a grocery store. Yes, it was. In the middle of a pandemic where people are lining up for food, I was able to go to a grocery store and buy some food. So I didn't have to buy a lot. So I put it in the trunk. And as I put it in the trunk, I thank God for that. I got into my car. I finished the rest of my errands, and then I was on my way home. I pulled into the driveway, the garage went up, And before I could even get out of the car, I heard all this squealing at the door. And they were my grandchildren, and they were just waiting for me to come to get out of the car and go through my bags so that they could see what I brought them. So I brought food, but I also bought them some snacks. And can you imagine, I was able to afford snacks in the middle of this pandemic. This pandemic when people are just lining up, they don't have any food, they don't have any jobs, and too many of them are sick. There's a lot more tragedy in addition to the sickness. There's death. People are dying by the thousands. People are developing the disease by the tens of thousands. But yet, I had these children happy to see me come home and happy to see the food that I was able to get. So I started to unpack the food, and I was spraying the disinfectant and about to put it away. And I looked out the window, and there was one of my grandchildren in my garden. And I said, "Bobby!" And he looked up, and I ran out, and I said, "You get out of my garden, because you're going to fall into my garden and you're going to ruin my vegetables." And then I thought again, look, I had a vegetable garden. So if I had any problem with food, there was the garden, and I could can the food. And not only that, if I didn't have enough information about my garden, I could call people on the telephone. There was someone that I can consult with about my garden, and there was someone that I could ask about canning. So that was wonderful. And then you know what else I had? Let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you why I don't feel alone. And that is because, where I no longer feel alone, that is because I go to sleep and then wake up in the house where there are 10 other people. 4 of them are my grandchildren. 4 of them are my grandchildren from my daughter and her husband. Now, they both still work, and they still work about the same time. And that's a blessing. So they brought them over to me where I could supervise their going to school online. And believe me, I learned more from them than I know they learned from me. And then my son was kissing his wife because he was about to go to work. And I'll tell you how that happened. My son was living here in Texas. He and his wife moved to New Hampshire. And about 2 years through that, they decided to come back. So I was expecting them back since last year. And they came right around the 1st of July. And he did not have he had a small break in working, but the company where he worked was able to hire him when he got to Texas. So he was on his way to work. What a blessing. And his wife had a business, and she continued her little business in the house. I call it a little cottage business. And she continued that. Boy, what a blessing. What a blessing. So you see, I really had abundance. You could call it blessings. You can call it abundance. But be sure you call it net wealth and your superpower. So thank you for listening, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Peggy. You give us a great perspective on abundance. With 10 people in your house, I'm sure there are times when you have some challenges, but it sounds like you take yourself right back to recognizing and being happy that you have your family with you. Because I know you were there by yourself for a little while, but wow, 10 people.
Oh, yes. Before, when I was preparing for this for a long time. And at one time, when I lived in San Antonio, I lived by myself. And I could imagine some awful things, having to live by myself, going through a disaster. But as things turned out, my sister and her son we all moved to Dallas together. So that was 2 more, that was 3. And then with the 4 grandchildren and the 2 more grandchildren and the 2 more adults, that's 11. So I get up with 11 people and go to bed with 11 people.
That's a lot of love around you. It's a wonderful thing. Wonderful to see that you accept it and take it. And I see it's bringing out your glow even more. So congratulations on that. Thank you for sharing on net wealth and how important abundance is. So really, what gives you abundance? What really makes you happy? With Peggy, it's her family. What about you? Is it your relationships? Is it your spirituality, the church you go to, the friends you have, the work that you do, your commitments? So look at that. It's not just wealth. I know right now in today's society, today's environment, that wealth from the dollar perspective is important. But equally important is making sure that you are taking care of yourself and looking out for yourself in all of these dimensions. And that helps you to really connect with your superpower in you. So it's time to answer the question for net wealth. Abundance. How do you display your signs of wealth? 1 to 3, I lack abundance. 4 to 7, I understand broad abundance and I'm working on a plan to achieve. And 8 to 10, I have abundance in many areas of my life. Give yourself a score. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, does she have all women that work with her and then speak? I know you've seen women so far, 6 of them. But now the next 3, you're going to meet the men in the group. Funny that they all are in the expressive voice. And the expressive voice is who you have become and how you live your life and the habits that you live on a day-to-day basis. And the first dimension in that is legacy. And again, legacy is one of those words like net wealth that has a predefined meaning on our society, meaning what you left behind. But we talk about legacy as the gifts you were born with and how you live. And our speaker for this is Mr. Willie Crittenden. His name, we refer to him affectionately as Mr. Willie. He has had a very distinguished career as a leader and being very influential in the things that he does, and a very interesting story to share with you today. Willie, you're on. Unmute yourself. Okay, you're on.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Is it on?
Yes, you're on. You're good.
It's a pleasure for me to be here to talk about legacy. Most of the time when you hear the term legacy, you think that the person is no longer with us, but your legacy lives with you all of your life. Your legacy is formed by you recognizing and using your gifts and talents. And these are unique to every individual. Norma Hollis, in her book, The 10 Steps to Authenticity, states that everyone is born with a set of unique talents and skills. That is intellectual, spiritual, and physical gifts. A combination of these gifts, multiple intelligences, physical, personality, and character, the combination of these gifts, when you recognize and develop your gifts, you have the tools to navigate throughout the rest of your life. Recently, we suffered a tragedy in America, and I say it's a tragedy in the world, with the passing of Congressman John Lewis from Georgia, the state that I was born, LaGrange, Georgia. John Lewis used his gifts and talents to make a difference in mankind through the lunch counter sit-ins, the March on Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and the March on Washington. John used his gifts that he was born with and developed to lead those marches. John was beaten unmercifully going across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he stated, "I don't know how I got back to the other side of the bridge from Selma." But he did. And I attribute that to John's tenacity and his will to be successful and the will to lead. John Lewis was inspired by Dr. King, by his oratories, his leadership, and the way that he carried himself. Dr. King told his staff, I want to meet the boy from Troy. And the boy from Troy is the Honorable John Lewis. Dr. King helped to change John Lewis's life. John Lewis was the director of SNCC. He left that and went to work with Dr. King. There's an ironic twist in this thoughts about John Lewis. John Lewis inspired me. I did not know who he was, other than he was a congressman. He led the March on Washington and the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I had the pleasure of meeting John Lewis in 1989. My son graduated from Morehouse College in 1989. He was a babysitter of John and Lillian Lewis's son. Lillian is from Los Angeles, and I didn't know at the time, but her sister, Harriet Thornton, and I were assistant principals together. They gave a reception in honor of all the graduates from LA at their home on graduation day. I had an opportunity to sit and talk to Congressman Lewis. You would not think that he was of that stature. He was just a regular guy dancing to the music. And I had a friend of mine recently tell me that you must be connected to John Lewis. You guys were in the same age category and you dance alike. And I don't know where that was coming from, but I'll take it as a compliment. John inspired me to want to do the best that I could for the students in the LA Unified School District. It just reinforced my desire. This all started for me in the 4th grade, where my mother said, you were born a leader, not a follower. And I want you to take that to heart and exhibit that leadership skills. So that's how I came up with my superpower of leadership and influence. It all started in the 4th grade. We had a school-wide Christmas pageant, and the lead role in the pageant every year was designated for a 7th grader. I was in the 4th grade that particular year, and the lead kept butchering his lines almost on a daily basis. And we got to the point of almost showtime, and the director said, God, we're at showtime. I don't know what I'm going to do. Because we cannot have a lead that doesn't know their lines. So I raised my hand, I can do it. They put me to the paces and I recited those lines perfectly. And can you imagine a 4th grader being the lead in the school-wide production? It was an exhilarating experience because I used to sit back and think, God, I can't wait till I get to the 7th grade to be the lead. But I got that opportunity as a 4th grader. The second part of that, we had a school-wide fundraiser. And the 4th grade class elected me to head the fundraising drive for the 4th grade. And we excuse me, we raised the most money, and a young female student in our class was going to be crowned Miss Kelly Grammer. And I was chosen to put that crown on her head. A little funny part of that, we had to wear shirt and tie. And my tie was crooked. And the principal of the school, his name was Mr. Hawkins, and we called him Fess. And so he came up to the stage and said, come here, young fella. I said, oh my God, what have I done now? He straightened out my tie because it was just that kind of an event. 5th, 6th grade, nondescript, still using those talents and skills that I had. But as a 12-year-old young man, I took a big leap and moved to Los Angeles, California, leaving a segregated town in Georgia to a segregated city in California. How this dream came about, I used to read in books about the prehistoric animals at the Rancho La Brea tar pits, and it's still there today. And I just told my mother, if I ever got an opportunity, I want to go to Los Angeles. My family was partly in Georgia and in Los Angeles. As I said, as a 12-year-old, I moved to Los Angeles. Didn't know anyone but family. Started playing football on 93rd Street. We called ourselves the 93rd Street League. And I was born with a physical talent of being a good football player. And that's how young men started to gravitate. They wanted to be on my team because my team always won. Getting through that summer, then in September, I enrolled at Edison Junior High School. The first week did not go very well for me, as in the middle of the week, I stepped on the school bully's shoes. And where I'm from, you always say, I'm sorry. That's not good enough. We'll settle this after school. Didn't make anything out of it. Went through the day. On my way home from school, he and a couple of his buddies came up. Are you ready to fight? Oh, that's not necessary. But if you want to, I'll engage you. And guess what, folks? I kicked his butt. Going home, then back to school, the boy's vice principal called me into the office. And he said, I understand you were involved in a fight yesterday. Yes, sir. Where I'm from, a good old Southern Georgia boy. Yes, sir. No, sir. Ma'am. And he said, I reviewed your record from elementary school. And it seems to me that you had a stellar record, and with an emphasis on academics and leadership. You should think about channeling those entities or gifts that you have into Edison Junior High School. And that was the start of my career at Edison, winding up, graduating, and as a 9th grade president. Then on to Fremont High School. Same attributes of leadership, influence, and physical gifts guided me through. As a senior, I was selected as the most inspirational football player and president of the Letterman's Association, ending up as the senior class president. Then a culture shock hit me. I was going to college, and I enrolled at Whittier College. Whittier College had 2,000 students, and there were 20 Blacks. I navigated through that situation seamless, as I enjoyed the years in athletics and in scholarship and other endeavors at Whittier College. There's an irony to that one too, with John Lewis. Some of my senior classmates in the spring of the year drove to Selma to take place in that march. I couldn't afford it, or I would have gone. Now into the world of work. My first teaching assignment was at dear old Edison. where a number of my teachers were still there. And we socialized quite a bit. And they always insisted that I call them by their first name. But I couldn't do that because I had so much respect for them. After leaving Edison, I went to Manual Arts High School for 10 years as a football coach, the head and assistant to the board's vice principal, and student government sponsor. I had to use all of those talents that I was born with and I continually to develop to motivate young men and students at the school. When I see people today, they don't call me Willie Crittenden. If they were from Manual Arts, they call me Coach. And that was a sign of endearment and respect. Down to the world of administration. My first attempt at becoming an administrator, I bombed miserably. So you can see all of the things in my life wasn't all roses. There was a thorn there that I flunked the first test that I took to become an administrator. Went back and put my head to the grindstone, and everything came up roses after that. As an administrative dean, an assistant principal, and principal. And that's the highlight principal, where you have the greatest opportunity to influence students, parents, and community. The superintendent of school at that time, Sid Thompson, called me into his office. And he had a saying, "How you doing, pal?" I said, "I'm doing fine, Mr. Thompson. We have a difficult assignment that we'd like for you to consider. We have a vacancy as a principal at John Muir Junior High School. I don't know if any of you remember the movie East Side High with Morgan Freeman. They gave me the junior high equivalent to East Side High. But within a 3-year period, we were able to turn that school around and move it in a positive direction, which led to other opportunities in administration for me in the central office, highlighted by the last 3 years as the administrator of school operations and safety, which included the administrator for the athletic program. You talk about legacy. I had retired, long gone. My son is the assigner of football officials in the Los Angeles Unified School District. He would have to interact with athletic directors, coaches, and administrators. And being taught the way that he was taught, he would go up to introduce himself. And they said, "You don't have to. We know who you are. With the name Crittenden, you have to be the son of Willie Crittenden." That's a part of legacy. Retiring, I was wondering, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with all that time besides playing golf? I'm not a politician, so I decided to run for the school board in the city of Inglewood, where I live. Ran a campaign, won, and that campaign was based on leadership, experience, and accountability. Being elected, the first 2 years, I was president of the board. Only served the one term to think about what will you do next. And I had the fortunate pleasure of meeting a young woman who was the author of the 10 Steps to Authenticity, who gave me a new way of looking at things and thinking. I never thought about the characteristics of the physical gifts that we're all born with. Excuse me. But they always say, they used to say, you can't teach an old dog new trick, but this old dog has learned new tricks. I want to leave you with, have you taken analysis of your natural gifts? Have you used them throughout your life? And if you have, well done. And if you haven't, step out of your comfort zone and take an analysis and see what you could have done. It's not too late for you to put into place those unique gifts and talents that you have. And if you do that, I think you'll turn your life around. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. You have clearly used your gifts, your spiritual gifts, your physical gifts, and your intellectual gifts. So I congratulate you on all your successes, and your great story about John Lewis was extremely interesting. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. And so as Willie said, what about you? How are you using your gifts? Are you aware of your gifts? Do you have physical gifts? People don't always look at physical gifts as their physicality as a gift, but you were put in that body for a reason. What about your spiritual gift? Willie didn't mention that he became deacon of his church after leaving for some time. His spiritual gifts are intact. And then also the wisdom gifts that you have. How are you using those? Very important to know what your gifts are and to use them, because that's what you were given to be able to find your superpowers, to use your superpowers, and to share your superpowers. So we're at question number 7, legacy. The degree to which you recognize and utilize your natural gifts and talents. Are you using your gifts in ways to communicate with the world? Score yourself 1 to 3 if your answer is, what natural gifts and talents? 4 to 7, I'm aware of them and wondering how to use them. And 8 to 10, I have integrated my gifts and talents in my life. And as you've seen by the speakers, no matter how young you are or how old you are, authenticity and knowing your superpowers is very important. So old dogs and young dogs can learn new tricks. And that's what we're here to teach you. So now we're going to the likability, your personality. And likability is all about how are you using your best personality in the world? How are you sharing your best self? We all have different ways that we expose ourselves and communicate. We talk differently to our lover versus our mother versus our boss versus our coworkers. And how are you using your personality? Well, our speaker is another gentleman, Mr. Jerome Thomas. And Jerome is a landscaper with LA Unified School District. And he has gotten back to work. Jerome, you're on. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Jerome Thomas.
Talk a little bit louder. Your sound is better.
Yeah. My name is Jerome Thomas, and I'll be talking today about likability. I work for LAUSD as a landscaper, as Norma said, and I'm also a Bible study teacher at a middle school and a teen motivational speaker. It's been rough. You know, I love working with kids. This is what I do.
Jerome,
yes.
mute your computer.
Mute my
your computer muted?
No.
Nope, wrong one. Mute the other one.
Is that better?
Yes, it is better. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. So my seminars were canceled. My Bible study classes were canceled. This is how I express myself, impacting students. I love working with teens. Even as a teenager, I had a strong love for working with teens. Working for the school district allowed me more opportunity to work with students. I was placed at a high school where I was asked to assist with 2 school programs. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
It was school beautification and the detention program. So one Saturday a month, I was given 80 students. We planted flowers. We put mulch in the planters, and we did school cleanup. The program allowed students to earn 4 hours toward their 20 hours of community service, which is a requirement to graduate. I enjoy that so much. You know, that's one of the biggest things that's missing now, with all the kids getting together and working together, and it's a huge void. So we made
You know, Jerome,
great friendships.
I'm
Yes.
thinking you need to just disconnect the computer altogether and just use the phone.
Okay. Wow, what is that?
Just there you go. Now talk.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry.
Sorry.
So it was a great time to get to know students, a great time for students to get to know each other. It was great watching them work together, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. At this time, my heart goes out to all the parents and the kids who are at home, because they need that. They need to be together. And, you know, I know it's hard for you to be at home, and I'm praying for you as someone who works with kids, because I know it's been tough. So the next program they asked me to assist with was the detention program. Yeah, that was something else. Monday through Friday, I was given 3 to 5 students a day for the entire day. It was in-house suspension. And as you can imagine, well, their parents didn't want them home playing video games and eating the house down and being suspended for what they had done. So they were able to come to school as a normal day, only they worked with the gardener. I mean, the landscaper. So they assisted me with duties like raking leaves, fixing sprinklers, you know, clearing brush and debris. This was a challenge, as you can imagine, because they showed up with all kind of attitude. They didn't want to be there. They were going to be embarrassed when the bell rang, when the students came out to change classes, and they were, and they did get teased. So I came up with a plan. What could I do to help this day go smooth and give us something to talk about? So I came up with 3 questions. What did you do? How do you feel about it now? And what is your next best step? And that would dictate our day. So these kids were caught ditching school, using drugs, drinking, fighting, stealing, cursing teachers out, the norm, the things that teenagers do today. You know, it's just what they do. And I saw it as a challenge, and it didn't intimidate me in the least, because I always knew how to find something special in every kid I worked with. That was what moves me. It's what motivates me. So something very strange happened, even more so than I never would have imagined this. I stopped 8 students from committing suicide. And, you know, there were tears when we were having these conversations. These kids shared a lot of painful things that were going on, which possibly somewhat dictated the behavior that we were seeing on campus. But I was so glad that it was an outlet, because one of my favorite words is, how can I help? No matter what was going on with a teenager, no matter what the issue was, when I said those words, it always calmed it down. It always stopped everybody. What? Yeah, how can I help? That diffused all the complaints, the anger. Now it's time to deal with it. So being authentic to me allowed me to connect deeper with on a deeper level with the students. The way I found out about the 8 students were parents were coming up to the school and asking me, well, thanking me more so, and letting me know that they knew that they were going to possibly commit suicide. So 4 of them I did know were in a really bad place. And God allowed me to speak into their spirit because I felt something that was really wrong. Did I know they were going to commit suicide? Not really, but I knew they were at a very critical point in their life by the stories that they shared and the
Oh, I think we lost Jerome. So we'll see if we can get Jerome back, and he'll probably call back in, and we'll put him back on shortly. So I apologize.
Are you there?
Yo, there you are. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Wow. What was the last thing you heard? Wow.
No, I got lost in your being lost.
So, so I stopped 8 students from committing suicide through this program. And it got a lot of attention from the deans of the school.
Jerome, we lost you again. Having connection problems big time. Take a minute and see if he comes back for likability for his story. He has some great stories about how he has saved children's lives. He's done it. He's said 8 suicides. It's been more than that. But he has an ATV that he drives around the campus, and he recognizes when some students are often in trouble, and he helps them out quite a bit. He has over 2,000 letters he has received from students who have thanked him considerably for who he has been in their life. So it's been very powerful. So while we're waiting for Jerome to get back, we'll go to the final dimension of authenticity, which is lifestyle. And lifestyle has to do with your when I'll ask you the question on likability with if Jerome comes back or when he comes back, but we'll go into lifestyle. So lifestyle again is about your habits, your day-to-day habits, what you do on a day-to-day basis, how you live your life. And that's such an important part of who we are because our habits, the question is, do your habits support what your goals are, what your mission is, what your purpose is? Does it support what your inner voice is telling you? And the person to talk about that has been with me for a long time. He'll tell you about that. From Detroit, Michigan, his name is Michael Wynn. Michael, you're on.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. I'm so glad to be here to talk to you about my authenticity dimension, which is lifestyles, your expressive voice, your day-to-day activities. As a habit success strategist, speaker, and author, I have superpowers. My superpowers is habits. That's right, habits. I'm excited. I'm happy the way you will see me, but it had not always been that way. At one time in my life, I thought about not being on this earth. That's right. I lived a lifestyle of obstacles. As a kid growing up, I had a bad case of asthma. I was an asthmatic, and I was able to find a way to slow that rate down with habits. That's right, with habits. As an adult, I was diagnosed with a bipolar depression disorder. That's right, 20 years ago. Within 10 years of that diagnosis, I got off of medication using habits. Yeah. My insight as a kid with asthma, it was always a micro moment. I'm the third oldest of 7, and we was poor. We didn't have a car until we got to high school. So every time we wanted to go somewhere exciting, it was always a micro moment because I had either an asthma attack and it changed our plans. I remember my father worked with Department of Public Works. He worked a lot of overtime, and not having a car, it was either my grandmother or we had to get a cab, and we had to wait till someone comes over and watch the children that didn't go. So as I got used to just trying to breathe in these different cars and going to the doctor, I got used to the needles. I got used to the breathing treatments. It didn't bother me, but it was a micro moment. So growing up with 2 older brothers, I wanted to hang out with them all the time. but they was reluctant to do so because they was worried we can't have any fun if he have his asthma attacks. But I was aggressive enough to try and do what I had to do to hang with them. We all had paper routes. We did a lot of things together. But when it came to sports, it was no. It was no for so many doctors. No. It was no for my parents. But after one emergency trip, I had a follow-up with this Korean doctor who was opposite from no, but said, yes, you should try and work your lungs out. You should be prepared to run track. Have your water, right? Have your exhaler and learn how to breathe. Breathe. He told me to breathe, not just when I'm in a moment, but when I'm relaxing, breathe. Long and behold, I got used to breathing. I got used to exercising that beautiful breath. And I was able to run track, not just in middle school. I went to high school, ran track, played football, even went to college, track and football. During my growing up, I also had an ambition of being an entrepreneur, owning my own business. So I had a lot of things going. I'm the third oldest, and out of 7, I was the first one to go to college. I had all this anxiety going because I didn't want to fail, so I did. I went to college. I had my struggles, but I made it through. I made it through. I was so excited. I picked the major, accounting and marketing. Accounting playing sports was very hard, but I made it through. I graduated. It took some time, but I graduated. And when I graduated, I got a job as an auditor, an oversight person over accountants. Most people that graduate, they become accountants or bookkeepers. But I was fortunate to get an auditor's job. So I had to go back and really apply the stuff that I learned in order to stay in that type of work. Traveling, as I was growing, I went from the state of Michigan working in transportation to another state job as the auditor in charge over the casinos when the casinos opened in Detroit. Still with the state, was an oversight person. Those jobs they were nice. As I had my young family, I wanted to provide for them some of the things that I didn't have. I had 2 boys and I had a daughter who was married in a family. I had so much excitement. On the other hand, this anxiety that people saw that they didn't want to really be around me for some reason. I developed so much energy and so many things that I wanted to do that I neglected the time that I should have spent with them. That's right. I started a specialty marketing business at the flea market. I did income taxes. I was a real estate investor. And I also got my license builder, all while I traveled all over the state and the country being an auditor. But as my kids used to call me the Green Monster, the Hulk, if you ever know that cartoon character, I was that guy that would turn into this monster and then turn back and look for forgiveness. But I had no clue that it was just them, not me. But as I grew into learning more about myself, I finally took the advice of my primary doctor. Said, you need to see somebody. I'm concerned about the amount of sleep that you are getting. 40-hour span, I might have got 6 hours of sleep. So I took his advice. Once he told me I had to see a psychiatrist, I was reluctant. Stories about psychiatrists. I went anyway. And she diagnosed me when she told me, well, I really know what's going on, but let's do these tests. And when those tests came out, she said, guess what? You're bipolar. You have a depression disorder. Some bipolar depression. And what we want to treat you on is lithium, Prozac, and then Prozac and Depakote. So I was on some powerful drugs. I fought my way through it, but I had crying spells. I was delusional. I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't happy with situations. And then I could put on the front and go to work with nobody even really paid attention to how I really was. My kids didn't want to be around me. But guess what? During this whole process of me trying to get through these 10 years on this medication, I had a situation at my job where my medical plan changed. I got a new psychiatrist, and I got this angel for a therapist. Because her first attack wasn't just to get the medication that the doctor said to find out, is let's see what's going on. She got in my head and had me identified. How is your lifestyle? If you overcoming, what habits did you have when you overcame your asthma? You're going to the next level. It took you 3 colleges to get your degree. You had habits. So we sat down, just like anyone that might know how this thing go in therapy. When you're in a process of trying to get better, there's weekly meetings, sometimes group meetings. So every week there was some excitement going on. There was a different habit. 7 of them that I can identify, because later I wrote a book called Habits Don't Lie, 7 habits to overcome the obstacles. It was only just my background, because when I talked to her about my habits, I thought about visualized faith. I thought about being real, authentic, being authentic. I thought about knowing money. I thought about targeting success. I thought about just win, live, health, think, repeat. All those things came in mind because I had discussions with my daughter, who would always tell me as a kid, she wanted to be a veterinarian. Lynette now today is in her 3rd year. She's a OBGYN in Atlanta, 3rd year as a resident. But she started out wanting to be a veteran. Then she said, I have to learn how to treat people. But it wasn't that got me so caught up. It was when she was in medical school, I was moving some papers and some boxes, and I read this paper that she wrote. She said, I wrote that in high school. It was about brain and depression. And she reminded me what manic depression was, what I thought that I had a great relationship with everybody. She said, no, you were so manic once. Me and my friend Diane walked by you. Is one day you planted 35-foot trees on our property. You trucked in the dirt. Yes, I remember. You were sweating. Yes, I remember. All of these things went on, but I didn't know. So as I went through my therapy, I was so excited to talk about how to overcome these things. When I was told that I didn't have to take any more medication, it was a just win moment. It was a process that I learned how to take the affirmations and the objectives and the negativity and turn it around into a positive situation that really, really impacted me. I believe habits will determine the level of your success. It's like I had my favorite quote from Maya Angelou. She said, once the healing takes place, go out and heal someone. During that time that I wrote my book, each week I'll speak of 2 that was so important to me because my therapist wanted to know the why. The second one, as I mentioned, was be real. I was going through my medication when I met Norma 18 years ago. And it was amazing that I went to the speakers bureau part of it, and I didn't see her for a while. I heard about authenticity. I was going through this thing and I joined it. I became an authenticity coach, but I was still struggling with my medication. And I learned how my lifestyle had to be authentic. And then there was just win, because I'm win, but I learned how to celebrate all of the small moments with a win. It was very amazing when I heard. I knew today we're all still in therapy, and I stay focused on what will happen after the fact to make me this authentic person. So how does your habits speak to you? How do your habits speak to you? I want to tell you that it's so great to be a part of this, and I hope that anything that I said may have helped you. This is Coach Wynn, Mike Wynn from Detroit, and you have a fantastic day.
Good.
Well done, Michael. I'm proud of you. I love seeing your growth. You've just expanded, and I love your story. It said things I didn't realize, and very, very well done. Thank you very much. And show up your book. Show your book. You got your book here? You got your book here?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it.
Put it closer to the screen. We can't. It decides to fade in and out. But habits don't lie. There you go. There it is. There it is.
Norma wrote the foreword to it, and I was very pleased that she wrote the foreword to it, and it's been doing well.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're going to be giving you a free copy of Michael's book for those of you that have stayed to the end of the call. And we have another ticket for you as well, which I'll tell you about shortly. So let's answer the question on lifestyle, the last question on your authenticity assessment. Your day-to-day activities. How do your habits speak to who you are? Number one, 1 to 3, I have habits. 4 to 7, I'm aware of habits that I need to change and I'm ready to address them. And 8 to 10, my habits enhance my life. So thanks again, Michael. Love that you have such a focus on habits and how important they are. As a matter of fact, one of the things of the whole program that we encourage you to do is to find one habit, one thing to tweak in your life. We'll talk about that shortly. But before we end and do your scoring, let's bring Jerome back. He's back. We're going to see if that phone will work this time and you can finish getting his message. He's going to start off with the 8 students that he helped pass suicide. So Jerome, you're on.
Yes, thank you so much for your patience. Yes, the 8 students that were going to commit suicide really, really showed me how important is what I do for students at the school. But I have a natural love and a natural talent to do that. So, it just warmed my heart to know that I could do something like that.
It's not going to work on that. It's not going to work on this. It's too much static, and it's hard to really understand you. The phone doesn't work either.
That's what I'm using.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize that we aren't able to really hear you. I wish we could continue, or you had another phone.
Yep, and I unmuted myself.
Yeah. So give it one more shot and see what happens. Let's listen one more time and see what happens. Give it one more shot, Jerome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So I know what I'm here for. It's obvious. After that, I was asked to help with security around the school. And through that, assisting with that situation led me to a very, very painful situation that happened. I stopped 3 girls from being kidnapped, and I saved a student's life who was dying. So it was a complete blessing when I met Norma, because I needed to take this to a serious, serious point. And I love what I do, but I want to use it to the full. I want to be authentic. I want to be able to connect. So I ended up asking the principal if I could do a seminar, because they needed to know the things that I saw around that school. These students need to know what kind of tricks and things they were trying to do to kidnap students from this campus. So he allowed me to do a seminar on child predators. And that's where I got all these letters. It was just amazing. And so many students wrote stories about how it helped them and how they were going to be careful and know their surroundings. So obviously at this point, I was really outside of myself. I said, okay, I got to do something about this. This is serious. I love what I'm doing, but I really need to be connected to this. I really, really need to be authentic with this. So I went to my church and I asked if I could join a teen ministry. So they agreed. And when they gave me the list of students in the teen ministry, I about fell over. It was 60 students in the program. 32 of them was already around me at this high school. So that was proof positive that I am here to do something, and I hit the ground running. 32 students in a youth ministry. The school had a Christian program, and that was perfect because they led that program. Literally, they were that program. So I was just firing on all cylinders. It wasn't even a job anymore. It was all about connecting and being authentic. It was all about getting close to God and figuring out the best thing I could do to be here, which brought me to being a Bible study teacher at a middle school, which I did a seminar on bullying, which was just, it was the worst. I was so glad I did it. I even made the bullies in the room feel uncomfortable. You know, they didn't want to, the kids would look to the side. They all knew who they were, but the bullies were very uncomfortable. It's such a bad problem. So, you know, what about you? What do you want to do to be authentic in this life? You know, with what's going on in the world right now, you know, keeping it real takes on a whole new dynamic. And to this day, I still get calls and texts from students. They're in their 30s now, 20s, late 20s and 30s. And I still have a connection with a lot of them. So here's the thing. Life is short, guys. You know that. And it's getting shorter. You can tell this situation is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. When it's going to be really, really hard for us. What are you doing with this time? Stuck at home. Oh, it's all you can think about. So why not delve into that? Why not bring the best out of yourself? This is the best time. It's a time when you will think the deepest and feel the most. Going back to work was just weird. You know, we always stand in the yard, talk to each other. We try to lift each other up before we go. You know, it's a great thing to do, but it was so weird when I came back to work. Everybody was wearing masks. I identified with the people who had children, and they were staying away from everybody. You know, it was really hard, you know, and now that I am back at the schools, there's no students. It's so hard, it's so weird. There's a huge void that there's no students at the school. You know, when I go there, it's really bad, you know. So, guys, I just, I really need you to give this your best. Give it all you have. Be all you can be. So the last thing I want to say is the students went to the principal and they requested that I go to all senior events. Prom, grad night, graduation. They wanted to take pictures. Guys, this went on for 10 years. Can you imagine? 10 years. 3 to 5 students every day for detention, every day. It was an amazing journey. Please take this journey. Get on this ride. It's here for you. You will find yourself here. You do have a place in the authenticity grid, and it will totally change your life. It will give so much meaning to your life, especially now. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Jerome. Great story and such heartfelt statements from you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the endorsements as well. I appreciate you. And congratulations on making it work. And good luck on continuing making it work for yourself. So congratulations. Thank you so much. You know, one thing about likability, you can't be likable if there's nobody around. So in the schools where your challenge is, you know, I know you miss the students considerably. So likability is something, again, you don't take for granted, as Peggy mentioned about Net 12. You don't take things for granted and be thankful for what you do have. So let's take a look at likability. Question number 8, your personality. What does the person you expose to the world say to the world about who you are? Score yourself 1 to 3. I didn't know I could modify my personality. 4 to 7. I recognize my personality pros and cons. And 8 to 10. I have modified my personality to reflect my best self. Give yourself a score. So now, stay along with me. We have a little bit more we want to share with you. First, we want to talk about your scores and how to interpret them. This is a really magical grid. It's something that came through me. It's nothing that I set out what I'm going to do, but it's just what happened with my life. It kind of led me through it. But when I found out what it was and what it does, I'm just absolutely amazed and just really delighted. And so you're going to now see what it does for you and how you can use it as a coaching tool. There are multiple ways to use this, and I have multiple volumes of work that I've done that can take you deeper and deeper. This is just step 1, just scratching the surface. So if you took the assessment online, then you just click to complete it and it gives you your scores. If you took it on the paper version, then what you're going to do is transfer your scores from the front to the back. So when on the back, where you see it has inner, outer, and expressive on the top, and think, communicate, do, you see the numbers in the boxes. So number 1 in the top left box relates to number 1 on your intuition. So number 1 in the top box on the back relates to number 1, the first answer you made for intuition, and likewise for the entire grid. So continue to transfer your scores from the front to the back, and then pull out your calculator and add them vertically and horizontally, the columns and the rows. And then you're going to add those together. So just get in the process of doing that. Again, if you do it online, the answers come right to you. When we do this live, we walk around the room and make sure you're getting them. So hopefully the explanations are close enough so you can follow them. But you're just going to transfer the numbers from 1 to 9 on the front to the back so that they're on the grid. And then we're going to talk about your scores on the grid in just a few minutes. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that while I'll ask Linda if there have been any questions or comments or statements that we need to respond to.
Hi. Yeah, right, here I am.
Okay.
There aren't really any questions that haven't been answered. Someone wanted to know the 3 things that Willie spoke of, but while everybody's doing their scores, I would like to highlight there's been a lot of positive feedback and comments made on some of the speakers. And then one comment, as someone was relating to what was being said, Lenora said, I was fortunate enough to have a parent who taught me that my gut should be followed, and she taught me how to use it. So that's kind of relevant to everything that's being stated. And there was a comment for Peaches. Great job, Peaches. I'm enjoying listening while on the road. Norma, a wake-up call for me to follow my inner self. And a comment from Marie. Outstanding, Marie, thank you. And I think that was before Marie was finished, and that was in reference to all of the charity work and what she's doing for the community. Another comment, everyone is awesome and great information. Love the smiles. Hi, Mr. Willie and Norma. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Peggy, for showing your gratitude, looking at life right side up. A comment for Willie, Mr. Crittenden. There's a song by Kurt and Kurt Carr singers, which goes so well with your presentation, called No One Else. And for Dell, I really enjoyed your authenticity and sweet spirit. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Willie, for your motivation. And to Norma in general, thank you for inviting me and listening. It gives me a lot to think about and to work on. So all in all, just some very positive feedback for the inspiration, as well as from myself. It's been a pleasure listening to everyone's story. It's uplifting, especially at this time when we all need some joy in our lives. So thank you, Norma, for bringing this to us.
Well, it brings me joy to bring this to you. I love doing this. I love training people. I love watching them blossom and grow. I love hearing their stories and bringing their stories out. And we're looking for more people, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. But first,
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I have 2 more. Penny, I think that this was either to Michael or Jerome, but it was to Jerome. Sounds like you're doing great work, Jerome. You're inspirational. And thank you, everyone. I have enjoyed listening to you all. Jerome, you demonstrate it takes a village.
Well, there were certain themes that were said in the stories in addition to authenticity and superpower, but the influence of parents is one of them. You heard that from several of the speakers. And one of the things I've learned about life and about your parents is that you spend most of your life going beyond what your parents did. So your parents do things sometimes that impact you in ways that no one expected. And then you grow into it or you grow out of it. But it takes a lifetime to do it in different directions that you go. And let me tell you a little bit now about your scores and how you can haven't completed doing your own scores, if you're having any challenge with that, there is a link at the end where we can have a conversation. And I can help you with that. But it's basically you're going to transfer your scores, and you're going to add them vertically and horizontally. Add the rows and the columns, and then you add those totals together, and then you double those scores. Anyway, see what you can do. You can put any questions out if you like, and I'll try to show you maybe online if I have to before we go, and I'm going to share my screen in a few minutes. But basically, when you look at your scores, look to see where your strength is. Where do you have the highest score in these 9 dimensions? That's the area of your superpower. So where is it? Where is it for you? One of my highest scores is intuition. And I know my superpower, I'm super powerful when I listen to my intuition. I don't always listen and follow it. Sometimes I mess up on that. But I find when I do, life flows better. It just goes better. Where's your highest score? That's the area where your intuition lies. And what you have to do then is figure out in that area, how do you show it? How do you display it? How do you live your life in such a way that your gifts come out, that your superpower is used? Now, another thing you can do is look at your highest scores at the bottom here. When you added up your inner voice and your outer voice and your expressive voice, the highest score you could have gotten is 30. What's your score and which one is highest? Are you more of an inner voice person? Your default is you go to your inner voice when you have issues. Are you an outer voice person? You really are focused on how you look and how you appear to others. Are you an expressive voice person? Where you focus on your gifts and how you use them in the world? And likewise, now I didn't talk about the rows here, but look at these words here. Think, communicate, do. It's on your grid also, on the side of your grid. Think, communicate, do. And what that means is basically to get anything done in the world, to do it effectively, it's a 3-step process. First, you think about it, then you communicate it, and then you do it. But so often in life, we start doing before we've even thought about what we're doing or talked to anybody about it, even ourselves. So think means you contemplate, you evaluate, you research, you examine, all those things that helps you to understand something better. That's what it means about to think. The communicate is you talk to somebody, talk to yourself first, make sure you have a communication with your inner voice to connect with it, talk to others, talk to your quality network, see what they think about it. You might even run it by some quality network people. But find out, communicate, share. And then do means go into action. Take action to make things happen. When you look at these, there are different energies. Think is one energy. You don't think the same way that you do something. When you think, you generally go to your own. You go inside yourself. You evaluate. When you communicate, you have other people. Or even talking to yourself, it's a different kind of energy. And likewise, do is a different energy. So are you more of a thinker, a communicator, or a doer? What's your score over here? Is it highest? Again, the highest score is 30. Is your highest score in think or communicate or do? What I have found in the years of evaluating this is that this tool can be used to look at what you need in your life, what will help balance you out. No one gets all the gifts. All of us have certain gifts that we have. Some of us have many gifts, but no one gets all of the gifts. If you do, that makes you very confused because you have no idea what to do with yourself in life. So when you look at, for example, if you're a thinker, if your highest score is in think, then it's probably important for you to have some doers in your life. Because that means that your default area, what you enjoy doing is thinking and creating things. For creative people are highly thinkers, especially when they're also high in inner voice. So an inner voice thinker, someone whose highest score is in inner voice and is in think, those people, it's really important that they have people around them who are doers, who are more grounded. Because if you're an inner voice thinker, you're can be very wooey, can be out there in the world. I know because I'm one of them. And I know that I always do better in life when I have some doers in my life, some people who are more grounded than I am. So what do you need? And if you're mainly a doer and you're out there doing things, you need some thinkers in your life. So you can plan and evaluate and strategize before you start doing. This works also in the work environment. I worked with organizations, and I've had senior teams where one was where the marketing person was a doer and the CEO was a thinker. And they really weren't getting together and communicating and working together. So when they started doing that, it changed the organization's success. So there's multiple ways to look at this and to work with it. So I gave you some general ideas. I'm gonna give you one more, and that is when you have a challenge in life, you can use the grid to overcome that challenge. What we've learned is that if you decide what dimension your issue is in, then you can work on an adjacent dimension and you can overcome your issue. For example, I was in Barbados several years ago with a speaking engagement, and my host wasn't exactly happy with how I treated my host. I don't know exactly what went on. I don't remember, and they didn't even tell me. But when I got home, I spent some time evaluating my behaviors and evaluating myself. And what I concluded is that my challenge was over here in likability, that I wasn't really showing my best personality forward. So I looked at the adjacent dimensions. I asked myself, adjacent means that legacy is right adjacent to it, not kitty corner, but adjacent. So I asked myself, Norma, are you using your gifts and talents to the best way? And I was doing a lot of writing. I love to write, but I also enjoy speaking. And I wasn't doing much speaking. So I started speaking more. Another adjacent one is network. And I asked myself, did I need to have more relationships in my life? And I did. And I joined 3 organizations. And that got me out in the world a little bit more, because I had just finished writing the program, which took several years of a lot of focus. And I needed to get out in the world again. And that's when I went out and joined some clubs, started playing cards with some friends and some other things that I did. And then also lifestyle. And I had to ask myself, Norma, are your habits really supporting what it is you want to do? And I found one thing to tweak. And that's what I suggest you do. When you look at the totality of the grid and where your scores are, and you do your own self-assessment of it, find just one thing to tweak, just one thing to change in your life, and then implement that and do it for 30 to 90 days and see what difference it might make in your life. One of my biggest challenges on the grid is net wellness. It's a challenge for me because I had ear infections most of my life, and I took antibiotics for 40 years before I realized that they were really messing up the ecology of my system. So every year I tweak my diet. Every year I pick one new thing to do differently. Now it's the point that my diet doesn't look like anybody else's diet. It's very original, but it keeps me healthy. What do you do? What do you tweak? I know one day I was driving home. And I live in LA, and I was driving home from Santa Monica, going down Pico Street, for those that know the area. And it took 5 lights for me to go 1 block. And I work at home, and I'm not used to that traffic. And I don't ever want to get used to that traffic. But I realized I didn't have to stay in the line like a robot. I could make a right turn, and I could navigate my way home. Far more interesting path, and I wouldn't be stressed out. So I tweaked that. What one thing can you tweak in your life? What can you tweak with what's going on with the coronavirus in Corona land? What one thing can you tweak to make your life a little bit better? I hope you will think about that and consider what you can do and how you can turn your life around, how you can find your superpower, and how you can step into your authenticity. Now, I want to show you how you can do that. I have some gifts for you. And I also want to share with you the things that I want to share with you to help you grow. So give me a moment here to get to my information for you. I want to share my screen and go here and start. So your superpower actually begins in your inner voice. That's the intuition, the integrity, and the inspiration. And once you connect with that superpower, then you're able to build and grow it. So I'm offering you a 6-week course to connect with your superpower in your inner voice. There are 6 modules, 6 programs, 6 lessons that I'm going to be sharing with you. The first one is a new introduction to yourself. When Dell spoke, she talked about the assessments that I gave. And when I do all my programs, they all begin with 3 assessments that I give you, which gives me a good way to get to know you, sometimes 4. And that's how we start the first session. That way you get to know yourself in a way. We take the authenticity assessment. By the way, the authenticity assessment changes every time you take it. And counter to most assessments, most people think, well, if I do better next time, then that means great. Well, Tracy can tell you that what she used to always say is every time she takes it, her score goes down. Tracy did intuition. And her score goes down because she's more authentic with how she answers it. So it doesn't make a difference in terms of how you answer it as long as you're authentic with yourself, because in a single day, it can change. It can change on a heartbeat. And so we're also going to talk on the first day about what it means to be authentic and what it means to live with your superpower, because it makes a big difference in your life. Week 2, we're going to talk about the power of intuition, all about it, where it comes from, what it means, how to understand it, and methods to help build it up, to build a relationship with it. I connected with my inner voice starting when I was 8 years old, and I've been connecting with it ever since. And it's made a big difference in my understanding of myself. And it's at the point now that my inner voice is my best friend. I don't do much without checking with my voice first. I know how it talks to me. I know how it responds. I know how it chastises me sometimes when I don't listen. And I get reminded about how I should listen. And I'm going to teach you those things because I've been doing that since I was 8 years old, and I'm a lot older than that now. The next class, number 3, is the value of integrity. This is following in the same inner voice that we talked about. So the inner integrity is about how important values are. We talked earlier, I mentioned about how important it is to connect values to your friends. In my assessments that I do and my coaching for people that are making transition in life, I encourage them to pick their networks, pick their friends by your values. You're much happier when you're around people who share your values. Most disruptions you have in a relationship is because you're not aligned in values. So it's important to know what your values are and how they can help you navigate your life. Class number 4 is going to be the joy of inspiration and how important it is to allow inspiration to lead your life. That's the story that Dell talked about. So what inspires you? When you know what inspires you, you can be inspired all the time. That's really important in today's world where we're home a lot and life is not what it used to be. So how are you inspiring yourself so your life is a little happier? It's up to you. Don't wait to be motivated before you take action. Inspire yourself. How do you inspire others? We'll talk about that and you'll leave knowing your inspiration areas. And then the think, communicate, do that I talked about on the side, how do you manage the energy of your inner voice? Life is all energy. Every dimension has a different energy. How do you manage them? How do you integrate them together so that they work together for your best benefit? We're going to talk about that and help you look at how to integrate your think, communicate, do in your life so it flows better. Lesson number 6 is to find your superpower. Use what you've learned to tap into your superpower, set goals, decide what to tweak and achieve your goals. And you're going to leave with a plan. Because what happens with these assessments that we do, you find out what's most important, what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, and how to move yourself forward. This program is for those of you who recognize that success is more accessible when you know who you are. There's research everywhere about how important it is to have self-awareness. They talk now about leadership requires self-awareness. They talk about students do better in school when they know who they are, but nobody is teaching it. Well, I've spent a lot of years preparing this so that we can teach it. And I'm looking to teach you and looking for people who will help me teach this to others, just like our speakers did today. This program is those who are ready to know themselves in new ways and use the knowledge to make transformations in their life. You know, life is all about transforming, moving from who you are to who you can be. We're all looking to make our lives better, aren't we? Well, how do you do that? Where do you get the guidance for that? It doesn't come from TV, which is how many of our students and our children grow up. It comes from going within. All of my programs are all about reflecting on how your life has been, reflecting on your past, your present, and visioning your future so that you can make your future happen. Looking at the gifts that you have and how you're using them and how you listen to your voice, what your voice is telling you, and so many other areas of personal development that maybe you've never thought about before. It's for people who are flexible and ready for change, because change is going to happen no matter what. Look at 2020. Change turned around in March, and it hasn't been the same. And it probably will never be the same again. It'll probably be more changes and changes and changes coming this way, that way, hitting you in all different ways. How are you dealing with it? Are you ready? This program helps you to deal with the change, helps you to prepare for it, to put out your strength, your superpower, and also looking for people who want to teach these concepts to others. As I mentioned, I help people to become speakers, coaches, and facilitators. And if you have a desire, first of all, let me tell you that it's who it's not for. It's not for people who have fixed attitudes about life. So if you believe life is one way and one way only, and you don't want to change, this is not for you. I don't want people who are stuck in a rut. It's not for those who feel that they are or feel they need to be perfect. There is no perfection in human beings. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. No matter how wonderful you may be, how great you may be, we all have the good and the bad of us. So if you don't see yourself as having a variety of emotions and a variety of feelings, if you're perfect like you are, and I've heard people tell me that they do not want to change, and if you don't want to change, this is not for you, because some change will take place within you. We never know how a person is going to change, but there's always results to it. And if you live in a box, and if you're happy in your box and want to stay in your box, this is not for you. Because I want people who value being outside of the box or creating your own box. So I have a special rate for you for this program. It is a 6-week program. And what I'm doing on this first class that I'm doing, this is the first class that I'm doing since I'm taking it online now. We've done these always before live events. I'm going to be recording it. So I'm able to offer it to you at half price because I'm going to be recording the one that you're in. Which is
I will be working.
Somebody mute that, please, Linda. The class is going to start on August 20th. And the special rate, again, is because I'm going to be recording it. And it'll be used for future classes that I'm doing. I have a serious goal of moving people from where they are to where they can be all across the world. We've already got Dell here ready to take this to China, and we've left it in China with many people. Australia has been around, and we're looking to take it to other places all across the world. As you've met Michael from Detroit and Peggy's from Dallas, we've been in many, many different cities. We want to get in other cities in the United States. And we're also working this program through my nonprofit as well, and looking for multiple ways to do it from the nonprofit perspective, both the nonprofit and for-profit. And along the way, if you decide to stay with us, we teach you how to take it into a business, how to make it successful, and how to apply it in many different perspectives. This particular class is starting a month from now on Thursday, August the 20th. So you can participate live, and it's the only time I'm going to do the whole course live. So you'll have the benefit of the live instructor at the entire time. So I'm marking this down 50% so that the pay in full is only $249. And you can also pay with a deposit of $125 and the rest of it not due until September the 1st. And for those of you that are interested in being certified as a speaker, facilitator, or coach, then I want to talk with you. I want you to have a call with me. Go to meetwithnorma.com. That's my calendar. And you can schedule a one-on-one call. We have had the program that you can get if you're a board certified coach. The program has been where you can get certification credits for that. I used to own a speakers bureau, as I mentioned earlier. So I've been training speakers for 20 plus years, and you've met all of them on the call have gone through some training with me, some long-term, some short-term. A speaker would be someone who's speaking on the program, and a facilitator is someone who is leading the program. And you can lead the program in many different ways. For example, Marie and I have been talking about leading the program for women who have been involved in domestic abuse. And Jerome and I have talked about doing the program for youth. So there's many ways the program can be adjusted because it meets with all industries and all opportunities. So if you have an interest in becoming one of the facilitators, speakers, or coaches and certified, then set up a call with me at meetwithnorma.com. And so these are the websites to go to register for the class. Go to joyenergies.com, joyenergies.com. And to talk with me, go to meetwithnorma.com. And I told you I have a free gift for you. I actually have 2 free gifts for you. So one of them is not going to work the way I have it on here. I have an expanded report for the assessment. So you all took the assessment, you got your scores, and now since the URL that we have is not working, so don't try it. But what we will do for you is we will send the assessment, the expanded report to every one of you that attended the call today. So the expanded report is information about whatever your score was on each of those 9 dimensions. Whether you scored it a 10 or an 8 or a 3 or a 2, it's going to tell you what that means. So you can go deeper into understanding yourself. Also, Michael is making his book available to you. You can go to the link that's there, bit.ly/myNNgift, and that will get you Michael's gift. Now, this entire program will be sent to you after it's over so that you can receive it and go further with it. I would be delighted to have you as part of our class. We are looking to change lives. And I would even be delighted even more for those of you that would like to consider being one of our speakers, one of our coaches or facilitators. We're moving. Some of you have been with me a long time and know how we've been moving, and we're moving faster. Now, coronavirus is not holding anything back. We're just doing it larger and bigger in a different way. So, are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? You can unmute yourself, and you can actually come on the screen, and we'll be happy to talk with you. And if any of the speakers want to have any last words or ask any questions or make any comments, you're free to do that.
You have to come out of share screen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. So take a picture of this so that you guys can see of how to reach us. To register for the class, Joy Energies, to meet with me, meet with Norma, and the reports, we're going to send you the expanded report, and Michael will send you his. So let me
Hello,
stop.
Norma.
Yes.
Norma, this is Peggy. There was one person named, I think you pronounce her name Cammie, and other people gave me kudos. They said some very nice things about what I said. I would like to thank them. I've just been having a little difficulty getting into the chat, and so I don't know what it is that I'm doing, but thank you for the comments. Thank you for your assessment of what I did.
Wonderful. You did a great job, Peggy. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? I thank you all for staying all through the entire program. I really appreciate that. We've appreciated you, every one of you, and look forward to hearing from you more. I see names of people. I haven't been able to look at the names before, but I see a number of names of people I know and numbers that I don't know. I look forward to knowing every single one of you. Judy Hayward, it's been a long time. So nice to see you on the call. Yes, and hello, and I'm not gonna say I'll shout to everybody, but hey, everybody, thank you so much for being with us. I guess I will, Rosamond and Cynthia and Rachel, and it goes on and on and on. Thank you so much. Any questions you want to send to us at the very end?
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed it, Norma. This is Dennis.
Hi, Dennis. I see you. I always love seeing you. That's my card partner. Where'd you go? I'm glad you joined us, Dennis.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Zenobia. Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad you were here.
Thanks, Norma. Finally.
Finally.
Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope all of you take to heart your scores and use them for your own growth and development. And I would love to work with any one of you, talk to you, learn more about you, see about your authenticity, and see how we can go further.
Can I say something? I don't know if I'm on or not.
Yes, Carolyn, we see you. Thank you.
Oh, this is really great because this is the very things that I've been working on as far as good habits and bad habits. And it's amazing how you can come home every day and you just sit down and watch TV and you're not really happy. And I said, okay, now what's going on? What do I really need to be doing?
Right.
And so that's what I've been trying to do, is develop myself and get out of, doing that. Because before the virus came about, I was always busy doing things.
Right.
So now it's like, it's a good time for me to reflect on some of the things that I need to reflect on in my life, to continue to enjoy my life and have a better life.
Right.
Because we get older doesn't mean that we can just sit back and then do nothing. I love helping people. I love going out and doing things. And so this has really inspired me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, when we get older, it's really about sharing what we've learned.
I
Because,
know.
we're not put out to pastures. The wisdom that we have at our age, and with the background that you have with the Bank of America and all the things that you've done, you have great wisdom and great things to share with people. People need to learn to hear what you have to say.
And I used to do a social grace class years ago. And, and teaching young people, not only young people, but older people, on knowing how to be better for themselves,
Yeah.
and to, like you said, enjoy your life, have integrity.
Yes.
Things like that. So thank you for
Well,
this.
schedule a call with me, Carolyn. Let's talk.
Okay, I sure will.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. And thank you, Willie, for inviting me, and you too, and Peaches and everybody. I've enjoyed it.
Great. This is your second one. We appreciate you being here again.
Yes.
That speaks even more to how much you enjoy it. Thank you. And they're not different, right? Everyone is different, right?
Right. That's true.
Yeah. Anyone else?
You have some additional comments. They didn't verbalize them, but there's some additional comments in the chat. Really glad I joined, from Lorna and Janitha. It's been eye-opening. Thanks for all of you sharing your stories and experience. And Philip says, thank you everybody who shared, and appreciate your insight and inspiration. And special thanks to Norma for organizing this event.
Yeah.
And also, I'm sorry, Miss Smith, Marija said thank you. And Zenobia said very insightful. Thank you to all of you.
Great. Well, my goal is to do these monthly. I would love to do that, but I need more speakers to do that. So if you're interested at all in speaking, if you speak now and looking for a platform, and we're starting on another version of this and really growing it pretty rapidly. So this is only the second time that I've had 9 speakers when I've done it. Usually I started out doing all the dimensions myself, but now I don't have to do that. Linda remembers. Linda did some dimensions long ago when we first got started a while ago. We started in Detroit in 2004, I think it was. And we've been doing them for quite a while. So it's nice to have other speakers share their story, because that just gives us so much more, it's much richer, and it's more insightful. It's far more valuable. So we're looking for more speakers, because we have a whole world to touch. The people, they don't teach self-awareness. So we need to help them know themselves. We wouldn't have the craziness in the world now if we knew who we were. If we knew who we've been, thank you, Peaches. If we knew where we're going and who we are, we wouldn't have the world we have. So it's up to all of us to do something. The times we're in right now are particularly phenomenal for change. When you read history books 100 years from now, you're going to read about this time. This is a phenomenal time. So why not be a part of it? Why not? You're here for a reason at this time. So why not use this time and the skill you have to take it and make a difference in the world? Because the world needs a difference, and it needs whatever you bring, whatever you have with you, to be a part of that. So I look forward to having you in the class. I look forward to talking with you one-on-one. I look forward to helping you see that you can be a speaker. When Peaches started with me, she's a school psychologist, and she thought she was learning how to use the grid and the assessment for her students. And I showed her, no, you are a speaker, right, Peaches? Yep. And she showed us.
I was shocked to find out that I could speak, and that I could hold an audience. That was amazing. A broad audience. I mean, I'm used to doing group with my kids in school, but not adults, and not on this kind of a platform. Thank you, Norma.
You're welcome, Peaches. Did a great job too. Your story was very valuable. Very much so.
Yeah.
And the stories, and I've helped people to find themselves, and because they tickle me when I meet with them and they tell me their stories, and I tell them what dimension they have. Oh, it's that dimension, and it helps them to see. And then for those that stay with me long term, they learn to speak in all dimensions, because everybody has a major theme of your life, has a major story of your life. So I help you find what that story is, and then build different stories around that major story. And once you begin to see that, you see yourself more deeply. You see yourself more. You see yourself more. Peggy, why don't you speak to that, and how, because you've been with me a long time, and Peggy has given her own events on authenticity, the grid. And then she's taken that and developed her own program. She has a program called Living from the Wheel, where she has an apron and in her own brand. And Peggy, come in a minute and talk about how you've grown so much with authenticity.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure because I never thought I could do anything like that. So when I started working with authenticity, I realized that I did have some form of creativity because I grew up in a family where we don't sing, don't dance. And so I never really recognized any other type of creativity, even though we really had it. And so with this, my creativity is coming forth. So when I do net wellness, especially in diet, and the diet that's in my community that we call it the diet of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I was able to take the information in both of his books and just put it in a design, and you can look at that design and you can get whatever you need from that book. And so I use that also as a coaching tool. So I'm very pleased to be with authenticity, and I'm hoping that I can do a lot more with living from the wheel. And when I do living from the wheel, I am going to include authenticity as part of living from the wheel.
Right, right. And Peggy also wrote a chapter in my most recent book that I put out, in Blueprint for Engagement. Peggy's been a nurse for 40 years, and so she uses her skills as a nurse in so many ways with authenticity and incorporating everything. Thank you. All right, any other questions, any other comments? All right, well, I thank you all so much for being with us today. I look forward to hearing from you. Don't forget joyenergies.com to register for the program, and meet with Norma to have a conversation with me. I look forward to meeting and talking, connecting with all of you. I thank you again so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.